My name is Clint Pulver. I am the author of I Love It Here, and the best piece of advice I have ever been given is a quote by Oscar Wilde. And the quote says, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. For most people, just exist, and that is all."
Holy cow, dude. That's some powerful advice. So who gave that to you, Clint?
A mentor of mine back in college, his name was Kirk Young, and I was sitting there just puzzled about my life, trying to figure out what I was going to do, what to study, and I honestly kind of chased the money a little bit in college. I was like, hey, I got to get the benefits. I got to get like the stable job. I've got to find, the salary. And he shared with me that quote, and he said, "Listen, do you realize that most people just exist every day? Most people just do the rinse and repeat. They do the 9 to 5. They come home, eat some dinner, maybe watch a little Netflix, hang out with the fam, and then they do it again. And there's nothing wrong with that." He's like, but for most people, they just feel like they're existing. And then you hit the midlife crisis, and people are stressed, or they're fatigued, or they hate their job, and they spend a lot of time at their job. But he said, to live, though, to really live, that is the rarest thing in the world. And he shared with me that quote, and it honestly changed my life and pivoted my whole life. After college, I quit my job and jumped into a brand new industry. And the day I quit that job and jumped into this world was truly the day I started living. It's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever had, ever.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Well, that connects honestly perfectly to your book, right? I love it here because isn't that what, as leaders, as managers, as those that are giving hope, right? Isn't that what we're trying to offer our people, the people that we should care about the most, right? That we want to help them live at work and not just work at work, right?
Yeah. How do you help people not just survive? How do you help them thrive? To the point where they don't just love their job, but they actually love who they are while they're working at their job. And I saw it happen in the research that we conducted. And when it did happen, it was a beautiful thing. It was a very, very cool thing to watch.
Yeah. Well, reading the book, I mean, example after example of how that helps. And one of the things that stuck out, I don't know if you did this on purpose or not, but one of the things you have in your book is each chapter, each segment has a little master your moments piece. And I don't know if you know who Tom Peters is, but Tom said a couple episodes back, Tom actually said that our moments are all we have. It is from here to here, and from here to here, and from here to here, and that's all we have, right? He has those moments, and you talk about that in the book. I mean, is that what you're trying to help us do as leaders with I Love It Here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the basis of the book came from, over 5 years of undercover research going into 181 organizations and interviewing over 10,000 employees as a millennial. And I would walk in as someone who was looking for a job. I had my backwards hat on, I'd wear something like this. And I'd go up to someone and say, hey, I'm looking for work. What's it like to work here? Would you recommend it? And, and they look around and they get quiet. It feels like an illegal drug exchange. And then they tell me everything. And we get the most honest, real truth. It's not a survey. It's not a one-on-one management meeting. It's just them honestly telling me how they feel. And employees didn't talk about days, Phil. They talked about moments. And the magic of all of the research was when an employee, when I would ask the question, what's it like to work here? And they would say, I love it here. I love my job. I genuinely do. My manager, Susie, she's amazing. I feel like we're a part of a family. Like what we get to do on a daily basis is bigger than ourselves. Like I truly enjoy my work. And then I said, well, why? And then they would tell me the moments, the experiences, those single little moments that over time mattered. And I found that those great leaders that were creating that type of response were beautiful at creating moments. They designed those moments. You know the story, Phil, of the teacher in my life who changed my story with a pair of drumsticks. I was the problem kid. He gave me a pair of drumsticks, created a moment, and I've been a professional drummer for 22 years. It's those little things, those little moments that we have every day in front of us, and the great leaders know how to capitalize on that. They know how to design that, where people truly go, I like myself best because of you and the moments that you create.
Wow, that's really powerful. And yeah, you do. I love your story about Mr. Jensen. I mean, that's a game changer, man. But I would say that perhaps even your title could be slightly different. based on what you just said. And that would be, instead of I love it here, I love me here. Like,
Yeah.
I feel comfortable to be myself right here with you in the moment because I'm willing to be vulnerable. And if 75% of businesses, as you quote in your article, right, 75% of the reason people leave is because of their leader,
Yes.
then it is incumbent upon leaders to take advantage of those moments. So 4 years of research, Clint, that's so interesting, right? 4 years, 75% of turnover is because of leadership. And then you said in there, 60% of employees are going to bounce and bounce fast because they don't feel appreciated. So talk to us about that intentional design, Clint. Talk to us about how that starts, because I would imagine it probably starts with a leader changing themselves, right? Changing their mindset to focus on themselves a little bit to figure out what makes them tick. Or am I completely off base here?
No, you're right on. I think it's really interesting because right now in 2020, okay, we just went through a massive pandemic. We're still in a pandemic. Everybody's hunkered down. We've done research during COVID-19, which is cool. I wrote a whole chapter in the book about it called Brace for Impact, on what great leaders were doing and what some not so great leaders were doing during this time of crisis. And 2020 retention rates have been all-time high because everybody's nervous. Everybody held on to their job and they were grateful they had a job, and we have no idea what the future holds. Now, I believe that we are coming into what I'm calling the job churn of 2021. Q3, Q4, we are going to see massive exoduses of people because of two things. One, when we get through this, everybody's going to remember how their manager treated them. I will remember what you did during this time of crisis. What did you do? Were we just a number and you focused more on the survival of the business, or did you understand that we were having a difficult issue or a difficult problem, or my family was struggling and now I'm the parent at home trying to be the teacher and I've got to be the spouse and I'm trying to balance everything, and you gave me no consideration to that? They will remember. Second, it's also given people time, a lot of time to think. A lot of jobs don't look the same way they did a year ago. And we will see a massive exodus. Now more than ever, we need leaders to connect. You need to be checking on the status of your people. You need to be getting to the part about them. If you don't, then kiss them goodbye, because the industry, the economy has changed as well. They can now work in San Diego and live in Texas. They can now, move to Florida and work in California because jobs have changed. And so the ability to look for, okay, what's going to, again, help me live a better lifestyle. I call it the 3 Ps. If they cannot find a sense of purpose in their work, if they can't provide in a way that's sufficient for them, and 3, they can't do something that has something to do with some purpose, like passion, purpose, and provide, the 3 Ps. If they don't have that, then they'll go and find that somewhere else. If they cannot grow where they are at in your business, they will go and grow somewhere else.
Yeah, you make that really clear in the book, and you talk about connection there. You say the connection makes a great team. But talk to me about how that's been true for you, man. I mean, did you have a great leader, a great person that really connected you to the work, or did you have to find that on your own working for yourself?
I mean, for me, I've had so many different mentors, great leaders that did connect to me, and they connected to me in a personal way. They connected in a way that was professional in manners, right? Because there's a difference between someone as a boss who develops you and then someone who actually advocates for you. When an employee hated their job, they talked about the manager. When they loved their job, they talked about the mentor. I mean, you look at like the Mr. Jensens in my life, or the Kirk Youngs, the guy that I just talked to at the very beginning, or I talked about at the beginning of this. Great people that got to the part about me. I think that every employer right now should remember that every employee is asking the question, let me know when it gets to the part about me. And some managers hear that and they go, those entitled little shining stars in my life, right? Let me know when it gets to the part about me. And I would say it's not so much about entitlement as it is about good business. It's about bringing humanity back into the workplace. And we have to do that. We have to be able to communicate the potential of somebody. Now, you've got some growth opportunities here. I see a future here. You're not just a cog in the wheel, and I'm here to help you get there. And then the second thing is recognizing them for what they do, who they are, what they contribute. Are they being seen? Are they being heard? Are they being understood? Recognition. Do we have recognition programs? Like, potential and worth for people mattered. And it's about getting to the part about them. So many times, Phil, it's crazy. Leaders, they stand in front of a fireplace and they kind of look at a person like a fireplace. Look at an employee and they say, give me heat, then I'll give you wood. Give me heat, give me productivity, give me effort. Then I'll connect. Then we'll consider the raise. Then we'll consider, throwing a company party. But the difference is, again, remember, we have to get to the part about them. We connect, we build people up, we support, we encourage, we uplift them. We make sure that they know that we're an advocate. And then that allows us to withdraw more. It's like it's a bank account. You cannot withdraw that which you have not deposited. So deposit, make deposits of trust, connect, get to the part about them, and you will build a relationship of mentorship, not just management.
Wow. Man, that's so good. I mean, that is a leader that I think just about anybody would want to work for. I mean, certainly some people are driven by only numbers. That's true, but most of us are driven by the person that we want to be with, the person that we want to spend time with, the person that when we're sick, that we go to work, not because of fear for losing our job, but because we don't want to disappoint the person that believes in us so much in that. And yet we know that if we talk to that person, that they would tell us to stay home. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting, right? That's an interesting tension for sure. But we lose people, right? People quit. People move on. People say, you know what, I've had enough. You gave us such an amazing example in your book about the impact of one employee. So talk to us about that, because I think some people need to hear what that impact is to really believe, right? That is the fireplace thing. Show me the impact, Clint. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Here's the thing. Like, have you seen the movie Sandlot, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a cult classic. You got those little punk kids. They hit the ball over the field. Signed by Babe Ruth. The salt of the squat, the king of crash, and they're trying to get this ball from the dog, the beast. It's this big dog that's going to rip their face off. You remember Benny in the movie?
Sure.
Benny has the dream. Do you remember who appears to him in the dream?
I'm missing it. Remind me.
Babe Ruth.
That's right. Yeah.
Babe Ruth appears in the dream. The departing words, though, that he says to Benny, I'll never forget it. He says, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. And every time I hear that, I go, I switch it. And in my mind, I say, heroes get remembered. Mr. Jensen's never die. The Kirk Youngs never die. The people that got to the part about us, they never die. Because, I mean, for example, Phil, if I were to ask you, could you tell me who the last 3 NFL MVPs were? You know who they are?
No. I could probably guess, but probably not accurately.
What about the last 2 Academy Award winners for Best Actor?
No, could care less. No, nope, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Or who are the last 2 Miss Americas? Or like things in the world that a lot of people deem popular, deem successful, and nobody knows. Nobody knows who those people are. They have millions of followers. They have millions of dollars. They'd be considered wealthy, successful people. But there's a difference between success and significance. Because, Phil, for example, if I were to ask you to tell me the name of one teacher who made a difference in your life, do you remember the name of?
Sure. Yeah, every teacher I can tell you, right? I can start from little on, right? From Mrs. Leighton to my kindergarten, or Mrs. Domikos, Mrs. Leighton, first grade, Mrs. Hanson, who funny enough lives about an hour from me now here in Florida, right? Second grade was Mrs. Vaughn. I had Mrs. Shields and Mrs. James, and fourth grade, right? I mean, I can absolutely on and on. Mrs. Hassman, right? I mean, on and on. Yeah. Mrs. Grzinski, for sure, man. I mean, I can do that over and over and over again, of course, right?
Exactly, because they were the people that got to the part about you. I guarantee you, they were the people that communicated your worth. That they looked at you and they said, Phil, hey, listen, you've got what it takes. I see you. They recognized your efforts. They also communicated your possibility, your potential, who you could become, what they saw when they looked at you. That's how you make impactful significance in someone's life. How you tell a better story, right? The heroes get remembered, but the Mr. Jensens never die because they got to the part about you. And I think that we have to remember in this world, this journey of management, that really is a part of it. Like, you get to do that. It's a stewardship where you get to care about people and not just manage their tasks, but you are a storyteller. Not in the story you tell, but in the story you help other people create. where they look back and they go, my goodness, my experience at the Verizon store, or a Subway. I mean, we did a lot of work with Subway. Schools and janitorial staff, where people said, I lived a better life because of my work and because of what you did to advocate for me in that process, how you became a Mr. Jensen. And people will never forget you for it. We never forget the good ones because they created moments. They got to the part about us.
Wow. That's so interesting, right? Because I would have, that's so simple and yet so interesting and so profound, because I wouldn't have simplified it that way, right? If I was thinking about that, I'd never thought of, oh, well, it's when did they get to the part about me? But I absolutely see that now, right? Like after reading a book, I completely get that, and I see that. And for those that are watching and listening, thinking, boy, well, hey, that's great, right? This is for X class of worker. One of the things that I love that you point on the book is that you talk about Ashley. You talk about how Ashley was in fast food, and 4 employees, not because she recruited them, but 4 employees went with her to her new place. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How does that happen, man?
It happens a lot. And again, I think it's because Ashley became a mentor, not just a manager. In the book, I talk about the difference between mentorship and management. Mentorship and leadership. There's 3 classes. And usually we talk about leadership. That's one class. And then the second class is we talk about management. You want to be a leader. You don't want to be a manager. Or management's important, not just leadership. But there was a third class, and it's mentorship. Mentorship is not leadership. Mentorship wasn't management. Mentorship is mentorship. But it commanded the most, it was beautiful. Like, first off, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to watch. But second, it commanded loyalty where people would leave to follow somebody who was a mentor. They would literally leave and take less pay, go to a new environment. They would drive an hour and a half longer to follow somebody because they were a mentor. They to change their life and where they worked. And when we look at leadership, so leadership is the person who stands in front and they lead, right? What's the vision? What the direction? Where are we taking the ship? How do I get you to follow me? Right? That's a good leader. I want to move this in a certain direction, from point A to point B to point C. The manager is the person that's all about making sure that the ship has no leaks. How do I make the ship go faster? How do we create efficiency? But the mentor is the person who is taking care of the people on the ship. Mentors, again, were the thing that people talked about when they left their job. Not a manager. Nobody talked about a leader. Nobody really, they were like, oh, man, I stay here because our CEO kills it on time management. And I stay here because our CEO has such strong vision and outlined our productivity. And we hit our last quarter sales and we grew 13%. That's why I stay. Nobody said that. Nobody said that. They talked about the mentor and how the mentor advocated for their dreams. Mentorship matters. Now, there's 5 characteristics, Bill, and you saw this, you read the book, 5 characteristics that make a mentor. And these are the 5 reasons why those employees left and they followed that manager that you talked about in the book. The first C is confidence. A great mentor has confidence. It's ability to create trust. I want to work with somebody who's confident in themselves, and they are also confident in that they can get me to where I want to go. It's the first C. The second C is credibility. What's your background? What's your resume? Okay, if we're selling cars and you're my sales manager, how many cars have you sold? Do you have a background in that world? I want to know your credibility. The third C is competence. You might know everything about the game of basketball, but can you actually get out and shoot a hoop? In our industry, Phil, I mentor with people that don't just talk about speaking. I want to work with somebody and mentor with somebody who's a practitioner, who's actually speaking, who's busy as a speaker. It builds greater trust. It's a reason for me to have you be a mentor. The fourth C is candor. Great mentors had the ability to create relationships so strong that honesty could exist. We can have tough conversations. We can have honest conversations. And I know that you're not going to just give me fluff. You've made the deposits of trust, and you've created an environment and a relationship where, you know what, you're gonna tell me the things that I need to know to get better. And then the fifth C is caring. They had the ability to care. The moment we stop caring in our management is the moment we fail. Because again, people want to know when you get to the part about them. And when you truly care, when you have a relationship where you know that they have your best interest in mind and you care about them, there's a relationship there. Those 5 C's, that's why they followed her. She was confident, she had credibility, she was competent, she had candor in their lives, but she also cared. They knew that they had an advocate with her, not just a boss. And they all jumped. It was a powerful thing to watch. Mentorship versus management.
Wow. Wow. Les summed it up for us there if we're taking notes here. Confidence, credibility, competence, candor, and caring. Thank you, Les, for that. Okay, so you've convinced me, right? Or those watching, right? Your book, I get this. But how do we get started, man? How do we move from being a leader to being a legend? How do we go from just leading our team, casting vision, and getting out of their way to fully embracing mentorship? Les wants to know, and I want to know too.
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that we found when we would see a significant mentor in the workplace, that mentor was always being mentored. Great mentors were always being mentored. That simple principle, right? Sir Isaac Newton said, if I've ever seen further in my life, it was because I was standing on the shoulders of giants that allowed me to see. My dad was my wrestling coach, Phil, growing up, and he would take me every Friday night to the wrestling matches. And we would watch the varsity team just wrestle. And it was cool, but it was also Friday night. And as a young high school kid, it's like, man, that's Friday night. That's the time to go hang out with the friends. That's date night. I don't want to go and do more wrestling. I'd been a wrestler for a long time, and my dad was a state champion, and every Friday night. And I remember I got a little bit ticked, and I told my dad, I was like, Dad, dude, I do not want to go on Friday night. And he looked at me, and he got a little serious, and he just said, Clint, listen, do you want to be a great wrestler? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, then you've got to hang out by the mat, kid. You have to hang out by the mat. And it's a principle that kind of always stuck with me. And it's something that I saw in the workplace, that these great wrestlers, these great managers were hanging out by the mat. They were hanging out by people who were doing the things that they wanted to do. They themselves were being mentored by people that had those 5 characteristics. They understood the power of surrounding themselves with astonishing people. If you want to start somewhere worth starting, start working to do whatever it takes to associate with astonishing people. And it's true, right? You put a hard-to-catch horse in a field with an easy-to-catch horse, you usually end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses. That association, right? Jim Rohn, right? We always go back to Jim Rohn. You become the average of the 5 people you associate with most. I have no idea if that's been proven, but I do believe that. Great mentors were always being mentored. You want to be good at basketball? Hang out by the hoop. You want to be a great mentor? Where are the mentors hanging out? And in doing so, it will help you to become better yourself. Hang out by the hoop.
Yeah. Find some great leaders, find some great mentors, and invest in them first.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
Spend
like
some
coaching,
time
right?
with them.
Mastermind groups. Go on social media and follow specific things. Subscribe to magazines. I mean, there's so many good pieces of content, tools, things that we can learn from. And to be willing to invest. You said it, you spot on, Phil. Like, you find somebody that is growing a business or that's one manager of the year, and you pay for that. Pay for that and say, I'd love to learn from you. Can you mentor me? In doing so, it'll help you to become more successful. And successful.
Awesome. So I didn't know that you're a wrestler, man. What rate did you wrestle? That's pretty cool. I wrestled too. I was the worst wrestler. But before you answer that, I was the worst wrestler. They call me Count the Lights Gerbishak because I was always flat on my back. I was a big fish. I was terrible because I should have stayed playing basketball. But what weight did you wrestle, man?
I wrestled 112.
112, yeah.
I was 112 my junior year and also my sophomore year.
You're a mini grappler.
Yeah, little guy, little leg rider. Man, I missed it. I learned so much. I hated it at the same time, but man, it taught me a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah. So who do you think could win? You think Shoot would win, or you think Hulk Hogan would win? What do you think? Huh? Right, Shoot from Vision Quest, right?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a hard one. We'd have to do a weigh-in. We'd have to see where the weights are.
There you go. That's a good answer.
You got to see what the weight is.
Yeah. Well, Shoot had a lot more heart, right? And Hogan had a lot more show.
That's right. That's right.
So very, very different. Even though we all know pro wrestling is fake, it's not the question. So,
Let's not
so
even talk
that's
about that.
right. Yeah. So cool, man. So that's really interesting, right? Hang out by the mat. That makes a lot of sense. And is honestly, that's often very simple, right? But if we flip that, that to what you can do as a leader, right? That means you find that leader who is really great in your organization or outside. And
Yeah,
you spend some time with them, right?
who's coaching you right now? Most
Yeah.
managers have no coach. They have no other, like, they're not learning from anybody. They read some book that somebody gave them, or they went through the 2-week little management course, or they went on some conference retreat and played golf half the time, and then they come back and they're expected to be a manager. Like, it's not how it works. And unfortunately, so many managers are just promoted into management, right? You were the good employee, you killed it in sales, company has no idea what else to do, so they promote you. Just because you're a manager doesn't make you a mentor. And there's a big difference between that. And so do what it takes to hang out by the hoop. Make sure you have a coach. Because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's so
and it's
hard.
lonely. And it's lonely as hell, man. That's the hardest part, right? Because there's no connection a lot of times. As a leader, who do you look to? There's nobody just like you. If there were, you'd be redundant.
Yep. And if you walk around and you've got that big M on your shirt for manager, you're set up to be a target. You will be ripped to shreds. People will talk about you. You will be disrespected. You will be talked about at the water cooler. It's just hard. It is hard. It's a difficult thing to do. And that's one thing I wanted to strive in the book to help people understand. Because it's one thing to sit back and be like, get a coach and believe in people and be the mentor. Like, yes, those are ideal situations, but that does not take away that what you do is so difficult. I said in the book that the coolest part about leadership is that it matters. The hardest part about leadership is that it matters every day. Every day. And it's so much easier said than done. What we were talking about is not easy, but it is possible, little by little, right? Every day, those consistent efforts, those deposits of trust over time, it makes a lot. It does.
Yeah. It's about the moment by moment.
There it is.
By little, inch by inch, right? Really good.
Yeah.
Really good. Well, I love it here with you, Clint, man. We could talk all freaking day, but I got to ask you, man, I know what a great reader you are, and I know how much you believe in pouring into yourself to make sure that you're staying on top. So what's on your bookshelf these days? Like, what's the last book you read? What's it all about, man?
I'm reading a great book right now, The Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. Everybody should read that book. I haven't had this much fun reading a book in a long time. I don't know. Have you read that book, Phil?
I haven't. It's on my list. It's on my list to read. I just moved, so yeah, I got to read it. Yep.
It is unbelievably amazing. It's not one of his most famous books. A lot of people know Ryan Holiday for other stuff, but it's just all about how do you make your sales perennial, where it's not just a one quick shot, like you rise to the top of Amazon for 2 days and then you're forgotten. Like, how do you make a classic? How do you create moments in your product? How do you do something that becomes lasting, that's perennial? Every year it blooms, right? It's a gorgeous book. I also love A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller.
Yes, I love that book. Yes.
So good. Again, all about how to make your life a better story. It's fantastic. And then obviously the classics, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich. But dude, the new book, Perennial Seller, that I'm reading right now, I haven't had that much fun reading a book in a long time.
Awesome. And you read books, you don't listen to them, or do you do both, or what?
I read them. I tried the audio thing, but for me it's about retention. I'm trying to retain something, not just get through a book. For me, it really is a study. And so I like the physical copy, and I can just write it up and make a note and highlight. And then I go back through the book, and then I kind of have my little cookbook of things that I love, or things that I cherished or I learned from the book. And then I go back through and I write that down. So it's something that I can go back and, what were the nuggets? What are the lessons that I need to apply? What are the things I need to do? What are the things I need to stop? So it makes the book more of an experience than just, I'm not smart enough to just listen to it and retain it all. I've got to have a process.
No, that makes so much sense, man. I love that. I read a lot of books too. I mean, because I just moved, I don't have my library completely intact, but I've got tons of books as well. And I just for fun, I just look, I recognize that I bought the Kindle version of Perennial Seller 3 years ago. So shame on me for not getting through it yet. I knew it was in my stack, right? But I didn't know where it was.
Man.
Just full disclosure, right? So so that's cool, man. That's really great. I love the books that you recommended and that you recommend them for different reasons than I would recommend a book. And I love that. I think that's a great way to experience, right? You talk about experience in your book, right? That I love it here. And you talk about connection. So as we kind of wrap this up and bring this full circle, Clint, if a leader is looking to make that very first step into connection, because that is the most important thing, how do they make that step into connection with their team, into their sales organization, into maybe even into themselves, so that they can help others love me here?
It's a hard question to answer, Phil, because a lot of people it just depends. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to this. Everybody's in a different spot. Some organizations are in different places. You're with different people. Sometimes you're a brand new manager. Sometimes you're the manager that's been there for 50 years. It just really depends. One thing, though, that I think is fairly universal is the principle of just asking people. Again, not rocket science, but it matters. You've heard the age-old adage of, if you can feed a man a fish, then you only feed him for a day. But if you can teach a man to fish, then you feed the guy for a lifetime. Every time I hear that, I say to myself, who said the guy wanted a fish? Who said he wanted a fish? Maybe the guy doesn't like fish. I'm not really a fish guy. Again, the point is asking your people. We found that great leaders conducted what we called status interviews. In some way, shape, or form, they had a good reading. They conducted a status check. They knew the pulse of their organization because they created relationships and connection where they could ask people. And it wasn't about performance. It wasn't the time to go and talk about our objectives or our sales goals. It was literally just a check-in on how they're doing. I came from the medical field. That was my background, and I spent a lot of time in the OR, and the medical doctors were always asking, what's the status? Give me a status update. And what they're really asking is, what are the vital signs? Every human, we all have vital signs: your body temperature, your heart rate, your body temperature, and your blood pressure. Those vital signs determine whether you're living or not. And those vitals fluctuate. And when we're trying to treat a patient, or in this sense, we're trying to treat an employee the way that they want to be treated, we have to check the vitals, because the vitals will determine treatment. And then after you treat the patient, what do? You recheck the vitals, and then you treat, and you recheck the vitals, and then you treat. And you keep that cycle going until healthy stability is maintained long-term. We found that one of the greatest ways that they created connection and understanding the status of their employees is in some way, shape, or form, kind of in a variation, they would ask these 3 types of questions. Number 1 is, what can I do as your boss to keep you here? Think about it right now. In this economy, we're coming into the job churn of 2021. What can I do as your manager to keep you here? You're an all-star employee. You're a great person in this organization. What can I do to make sure you don't leave? Number 2 is, what's getting in the way of your success in this organization? Is it the pay structure? Is it our scheduling? Is it Mary in accounting? Like, who is it? What is it? What's getting in the way? And then that leads to the 3rd question: what can I do to help you get there? How can I block for you? How can I become an advocate? And you start this conversation with vocal praise, right? This is not, again, a time to talk about standards or performance or issues in the workplace. This is a time for you to check their status and to create an environment where they understand that they're valued. They understand that they're trusted. They understand that, okay, this is somebody who actually really cares about me as a person, not just as a cog in the wheel. And in doing so, you'll get insight and feedback that will help you to create a better environment where they don't just survive, they thrive. That's all I did. That's my whole business. All of my research was me creating an environment where people could speak their truth. And they told me. And great managers can do that same thing. Create an environment where people go, okay, you're worth being vulnerable with. You're worth talking to. And in doing so, you get to help them write a better story. What a concept, right? What a concept. but it matters. And when it's done, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, sure is, buddy. So 3 great questions for those listening. I want to take some notes here. What can I do to keep you here? What's getting in the way of your success here? And what can I do to help you get here? Great stuff, Les. Thanks for wrapping that up for us. If you want to know more from Clint, check out clintpulver.com. That's CLINTPULVER.com. His book is fantastic. It's called I Love It Here. And Clint, you're a gift, man. I really appreciate every moment we get together, buddy. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Appreciate you, Phil. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great stuff. And thanks, everyone, for watching, for listening, and for being a part of it. I love it here, too. Thanks.